We need to talk as well about Ozzy Osbourne. Such sad news that he's passed away at the age of 76. Such a shock yesterday when that news came.
Oh, yeah.
And you interviewed him, didn't you, Corey?
Oh, yeah. I've done a lot about Ozzy. And last time I interviewed him was about 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I still remember, because I was working for Virgin Radio at the time, and I was in the office to do an entertainment show. And I was in the office, and they said, oh, Ozzy Osbourne's downstairs waiting to be interviewed. And I'm like, what? I didn't know anything about this. And I was like, I'm not prepared. What am I going to do? I'm not ready. I don't know. Anyway, he came up, and we sat down and just threw it up in the air.
Wow.
I must have done an hour.
Wow.
And I don't think I've ever laughed quite so much.
Go on, just give us a snippet. What was it like?
During it, he was pretty much exactly as you would expect.
Yeah.
A lot of things probably that were put on the air then you'd never be able to put on the air now. Indiscreet, quite happy to talk about anything, whatever you'd throw at him, he would run with. And you know what? And there's one thing I remember more than anything else, and that's that Ozzy tattoo across his knuckles, because I remember mentioning it, because I think I've probably even mentioned it on here before about this kid when I was at school, and I sat behind this kid who tattooed himself with a compass and a pen. And that's what Ozzy did. And he did that when he was young, and he had a pen and he sort of like tattooed himself, you know what. But what a guy, and you know, and the hit,
what a legend.
King of heavy metal. I mean, in the 80s and 90s.
Prince of Darkness.
The Prince of America went mad for him. You know, there was the bat. You know about the bat story?
Yeah.
Because he bit the head off a bat, although he thought it was a plastic bat.
Oh, God.
Oh, did he really?
So it was thrown over to him, this is when he's on stage, bites the head off, had no idea that it was actually a real bat, and then had to have his rabies jabs for it and everything. But, I mean, the absolute king of heavy metal. So, yeah, huge loss. Everybody loves Ozzy.
What a man. Well, yes, we are, of course, talking about Ozzy Osbourne, who's very sadly died at the age of 76.
You made me cry, you told me lies, but I can't stand to say goodbye. Mama, I'm coming home.
The news comes just weeks after the band reunited at Villa Park for a final farewell concert.
Well, in a statement yesterday, his family said that he was with his family and surrounded by love. We ask everyone to respect our family's privacy at this time.
Tributes are flooding in honour of the heavy metal star, with Sir Elton John calling him a huge trailblazer and Rod Stewart saying, "Bye-bye, Ozzy, sleep well, my friend."
Well, joining us now is showbiz reporter Stephanie Tecci, and it's such sad news.
It's unbelievable. Just, you know, when it comes to showbiz, there is those people who are just a once-in-a-lifetime act.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you got with Ozzy Osbourne. There will be another like him. But as Elton John said, he has cemented his place in the pantheon of rock gods. And I think for his fans, I feel sorry for the fans who only saw him a few weeks at Villa Park. For the fans, they thought they were just saying farewell to him performing on stage, not knowing they were actually saying farewell to him for good. But he done what he loved. He was really eager to get back on stage, despite having Parkinson's disease. It was his fans and it was performing that really got him going. And for him to have that homecoming in Birmingham is what a way to go. But, you know, there's so many people who know Ozzy for music, but also he was one of the first few stars who got into reality TV. So there's a whole generation of people who might not be well known for his Black Sabbath music, but they know him for being on MTV and giving us access into his life with Sharon Osbourne and his kids, Kelly and Jack. And it was only a few weeks ago I interviewed Kelly Osbourne, and this wasn't a family that was preparing to say goodbye. You know, at the time she said she was so proud of her father for getting on stage, and they were very much looking forward to life after his music performances. So it was very unexpected, his passing, and it's just very sad.
You know, the Osbournes, the show is where I know Ozzy Osbourne from. And it was iconic. I think it was at broadcast on MTV, I think it was. Yeah. I used to tune in and it was brilliant because it was clearly just them. Well, it didn't feel to me very put on. It was just what you see is what you get with them. And
I think that's what people loved about Ozzy Osbourne and his whole family, especially him and Sharon Osbourne. I really feel it for her this morning because they've been by each other's sides for decades, and you can tell that that his family were the light of his life, and also he was the light of their lives as well. So it's a very sad day.
And the love in that family, I think, is so tangible. And that Jane Moore's written in The Sun today talking about, she lived with them actually while she was writing a book on Sharon Osbourne.
Yeah.
And she just said it was a house full of laughter. And Sharon was always holding on to her sides because she was laughing so much living with Ozzy.
And I think we saw that watching all these series. And I think over the years, like, despite the controversy they've had as a family, they've always stuck together as a unit. And what's quite surprising, and this is why it's such a shock, it was only this week I received a press announcement that he was going to be releasing his memoir, The Final Rites, in October. And he said in the press statement, he said, you know, would I change anything that's happened in my life? Would I give up the drugs, the drink? He said, no, because I wouldn't be Ozzy.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, if he went tomorrow, he wouldn't have no regrets because he's been around the world. He's done good, he's done bad. And unfortunately, he said, I'm not going anywhere. And unfortunately, it was just his time.
He's one of these rock stars. And the thing is, we've seen so many that have not lasted the course. To actually go through what he went, whether it be the drugs, the drink, everything, every rock and roll excess you could possibly imagine, Ozzy would be absolutely number one, you know?
He would.
To actually get to 76, let's be honest.
That's an achievement.
That is one hell of an
That's
achievement.
an achievement. Paul, I like to call Ozzy the cat of nine lives when it comes to controversy.
He's probably had 15, hasn't he?
All right.
Maybe 20.
He puts it all down to Sharon. He says, if it wasn't for Sharon, I wouldn't even survive the 70s.
Oh, I think that's absolutely true.
Incredible.
What an incredible family. Well, joining us now is Senior Commissioning Editor at the Daily Telegraph, Lebby Ayres. Lebby, thank you so much for joining us. What a legend. Very sad day, of course, for the Osbourne family. What do you think will be his defining moment, if we can ever say a man as incredible as Ozzy Osbourne will have one?
I think that going back to what your contributors have been saying this morning, there are kind of two defining moments, I think, for two different generations. And for one set of people, that is biting the head off a bat. And, you know, I mean, it was on the front cover of every single tabloid in Britain. You know, he was a legend for doing that. He did have to have rabies shots. It sort of cemented what we thought of him as the Prince of Darkness. But for people of my generation, it was Ozzy shuffling around his LA mansion, shouting, Sharon, Sharon, you know, and it is impossible to understate the fact that he may be the Prince of Darkness, but he's also the king of reality TV. And, you know, way before we had the Kardashians, we had the Osbournes. And that was a whole generation that was brought up on celebrity mags, that was brought up on Ozzy, Sharon, Jack and Kelly, in their family home, just wandering around, being funny. I think, you know, very far from his stage persona where we had this, you know, terrifying, he had, you know, he played up to his image. He always wore black. He's got his crucifix around his neck. And at home, he might have been wearing that outfit, but then he was sort of wandering around the kitchen, wondering what to do. And we all fell in love with him. He got a new generation of fans that fell in love with him all over again. And I think when he was on stage in Villa Park a few weeks ago, we kind of saw both sides of him. You know, he was sitting on his massive throne. It had a bat behind it in reference to that scene of him biting the head off a bat. But also we saw that, you know, how much he loved his fans, how much he loved being back on stage again. And I think he called it, you know, without knowing what was going to happen in a few weeks' time, he called it his final encore. And that's what it's turned out to be. And, you know, what a legacy. Well, an incredible rock god way to go out. You know, he's had his final performance. He's achieved everything that he wanted to achieve. And then that's it. He's gone. And really incredible, I think.
Well, there's something so poetic about that, isn't it, Lebby? Thank you so much for your reflections on Ozzy Osbourne there. Thank you very much. And do keep sending yours in. We can already see them coming through. gbnews.com/you'll say. We are going to keep returning to this, obviously, throughout the programme today. But such sad news, isn't it?
It's really sad, and it's really poignant, really. We spoke then about how he returned to the UK and performed that final gig with Black Sabbath and a number of other heavy metal acts, all for charity as well, it should be said.
Yes.
You know, he was packed out Villa Park, 40,000 people.
They raised a fortune.
Absolute fortunes. I think it was in like 9 figures, about 130, 140 million. All went to 3 charities across Birmingham. And he performed it all from his own chair He had his own throne. He'd just come back to the UK, really. This was supposed to be almost like his and Sharon's sort of retirement. They left LA behind, coming back to Britain to see out their final years. And sadly, he has gone a lot sooner than they anticipated. A lot of people close to the family have said that everybody's found it unexpected. We know he's had his health issues in the past. He's had Parkinson's. He went public with that in 2019. 2003, he had the accident on his quad bike, which made it very difficult to walk.
Yeah.
But he still powered through all of those years. That final gig, the clips have gone viral, understandably, on social media, of him just ploughing through, bringing the crowd to tears, and his influence on not just music, but the world of just culture as a whole. I watched the first episode of The Osbournes last night.
Oh, wow.
Because, it happened. I'm sure many people were doing it from now. And there's a really lovely moment. He's in LA. He goes to a Jay Leno talk show.
There's the trailer playing right now. I
Yeah,
see that.
and this was like a revolutionary piece of television.
It's huge.
But he's in LA. He's going on the biggest talk show in the country. And he's stopped by a security guard in the first episode, and it stayed with me because the security guard says, "Oh, you were one of the first gigs I ever went to. You're one of my music heroes." And Ozzy gave him the time of day, and he was able to reel off the date, the location.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And he remembered that gig, and it just showed how much he's just a lad from Aston in Birmingham, really, who broke America with Black Sabbath, changed rock music for the better. And, this show, Ozzy Osbourne and the Osbournes walked so the Kardashians could run.
I couldn't agree more with you. I loved watching this show growing up on MTV. It was just absolutely brilliant reality TV. And of course, you can't not see the Osbournes without Sharon Osbourne. She's become pretty much as famous, in my opinion, in modern day fame, as Ozzy in some regards, as a household celebrity name. She's been on the X Factor and been a judge and all these things. Obviously, she's going to be devastated, and their relationship has lasted all this time.
Yeah, it's faced its fair share of hurdles, shall we say, over the years. But yeah, so it's like over 40 years now since they got together. All of the kids were born in the early 80s. Jack Kelly and the other one who stays out of the spotlight, I've forgotten her name.
Amy, is it?
Amy, is it Amy? I apologise, yeah. But
Amy Osbourne, yeah.
So they had, obviously he was married before, had a couple of kids there, but Sharon has stuck by his side for decades. And they have become like pillars of British pop culture.
Yeah.
You don't get Ozzy without Sharon. You don't get Sharon without Ozzy.
Yeah.
And, understandably, should be devastated at this. He often cited her as an example for why he was still alive. He said millions of times, through his drug and drink problems, he wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.